My jealous sister poisoned my son against me for months. Mommy, why do you pretend to love me? The words hit me like a physical blow as I stood in the kitchen doorway, still holding the lunch I'd just made for my 8-year-old son, Tyler. He was sitting at our small dining table, his dark hair falling into his eyes, refusing to look at me directly. What did you say, sweetheart? My voice came out shakier than I intended. The peanut butter and jelly sandwich, cut into triangles just the way he liked, suddenly felt heavy in my hands. Aunt Rebecca says you only keep me because you have to. That you wish I never happened. Tyler's voice was flat, emotionless in that way that made my chest tighten with panic. She says that's why you work so much. Because you don't really want to be around me. The plate slipped from my fingers, clattering onto the counter. 3 months. For 3 months, my sweet, affectionate little boy had been growing more distant, more hostile. 3 months of rejected hugs, one-word answers, and this new habit of questioning every gesture of love I offered him. Tyler, baby, that's not true. You know Mommy loves you more than anything in the whole world. I knelt beside his chair, trying to catch his gaze. Why would Aunt Rebecca say something like that? He finally looked at me, and the suspicion in his brown eyes, eyes that used to light up whenever I walked into a room, nearly broke me. She said you'd lie about it. She said you're good at pretending. My sister Rebecca. My 31-year-old sister who'd been watching Tyler after school for the past 4 months while I worked my new job at the marketing firm. Rebecca, who'd always been Mom and Dad's golden child, who'd married her college sweetheart at 25, who'd spent the last 6 years trying unsuccessfully to have children while I'd had Tyler at 26 as a single mother after a relationship that fell apart. Rebecca, who'd smiled so sweetly when she offered to help with childcare. It'll be good practice for when David and I finally have our own, she'd said, ruffling Tyler's hair while he beamed up at his favorite aunt. Honey, I work because I need to take care of us. To pay for our apartment, and your clothes, and your soccer cleats. I reached for his hand, but he pulled away. I love my job, but I love you a million times more. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. That's what Aunt Rebecca said you'd say. Tyler slid off his chair and headed toward his room. She says all moms have to say that stuff. I watched him disappear down the hallway, my heart hammering against my ribs. This wasn't normal childhood doubt or some phase he was going through. This was systematic. Calculated. My sister had been filling my son's head with poison, and I'd been completely blind to it. I grabbed my phone with trembling fingers and scrolled to Rebecca's contact. We'd texted just this morning about pickup times. Her messages were full of heart emojis and exclamation points. Can't wait to see my favorite nephew. We're going to have so much fun today. The same woman who'd apparently spent months convincing my child that his mother was a liar who didn't love him. I sank onto the couch, my mind racing. How long had this been going on? What else had she told him? And more importantly, how was I going to prove it? That evening, I called my mom under the pretense of checking in about their upcoming 40th anniversary party next weekend. But really, I needed to fish for information. Oh, Rebecca's been such a godsend with Tyler, Mom gushed before I could even ask. She was just telling us yesterday how much she adores spending time with him. Said he's been asking such thoughtful questions about family and relationships lately. Thoughtful questions. My stomach churned. What kind of questions? Oh, you know, things like why some mommies and daddies stay together and others don't. Rebecca said he's very mature for 8, really thinking about these big concepts. Mom's voice was warm with pride. She thinks he might be worried about you being lonely, sweetie. Maybe it's time you started dating again? I pressed my lips together hard enough to taste blood. Rebecca had been busy, painting herself as the concerned aunt worried about poor Tyler's family situation. Did she say anything else about our conversations at home? Well, Mom hesitated. She did mention that Tyler seems confused about some things. Nothing serious. But she's been reassuring him about how much you love him. She's so good with children, Rebecca. It breaks my heart that she and David are still struggling with fertility treatments. The irony was suffocating. Rebecca was being praised for fixing problems she'd created in the first place. After hanging up, I stood outside Tyler's bedroom door, listening to him play with his Legos. 6 months ago, he would have called me in to see whatever he was building. Now he kept his door closed and barely spoke during dinner. I knocked gently. Ty. Can I come in? I guess. He was constructing what looked like a fortress, complete with high walls and a single entrance. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. That looks complicated, I said, sitting cross-legged on his carpet. Want to tell me about it? Tyler shrugged, not looking up from the blocks. It's to keep people out who lie. Jesus. Who's been lying to you, baby? For a moment, he seemed like he might answer. His hand stilled on the Legos, and I saw my sweet boy flickering behind his defenses. But then his expression hardened again. Aunt Rebecca says you asked her questions. To try to get me to say bad things about her. His voice carried a rehearsed quality that made my skin crawl. She says people do that when they're jealous of someone who's better at taking care of kids. The manipulation was breathtaking in its cruelty. Rebecca had created a perfect closed loop. Any attempt I made to uncover her lies would only prove to Tyler that I was the jealous, manipulative one. Tyler, I would never. I'm tired. He started putting away the Legos with sharp, angry movements. Can you leave me alone? I wanted to scoop him up, hold him until this nightmare melted away. Instead, I kissed the top of his head. He didn't pull away, but he didn't lean into it either, and whispered goodnight. Back in the living room, I stared at my phone. I could confront Rebecca directly, but she'd just deny everything and probably convince Tyler that I was trying to turn him against his beloved aunt. I could stop the babysitting arrangement, but Tyler would likely see that as me being spiteful towards someone who really cares about him. I needed proof. Hard evidence of what she was doing to my son. And then I remembered something that made my pulse quicken. Tyler's tablet had a voice recording app that he'd been using for a school project last month. Maybe it was still installed. The next morning, I waited until Tyler was brushing his teeth before slipping into his room to check his tablet. My hands were shaking as I swiped through his apps, and there it was, the voice memo recorder we'd downloaded 3 weeks ago for his presentation on dinosaurs. I stabbed the settings and held my breath. The app was set to autosave recordings to cloud storage, which meant if Tyler accidentally triggered it while at Rebecca's house. Mom, I can't find my soccer cleats. Tyler's voice carried down the hallway. Check by the front door, honey. I called back, quickly enabling the app's background recording feature. If Rebecca was going to poison my son against me today, I was going to have proof. At work, I could barely concentrate. Every email felt pointless, every meeting a waste of time when my child was somewhere across town being systematically turned against me. My coworker Janet noticed me checking my phone obsessively around 3 p.m. Everything okay? You seem distracted. Just mom stuff, I managed, forcing a smile. How could I explain that my sister might be psychologically abusing my son right at this very moment? At 3:47 p.m., I got the notification I'd been waiting for. A new voice memo had been uploaded to Tyler's cloud storage. My heart hammered as I found an empty conference room and locked the door. The recording started with shuffling sounds and Tyler's muffled voice saying he was going to practice his book report. Then Rebecca's voice, sweet and sing-song. Tyler, sweetie, come sit with Aunt Rebecca for a minute. But I have homework. Your homework can wait. I want to talk to you about something important. There was a pause, then Rebecca's voice again, but different now. Calculated. You know your mommy loves you, right? Yeah. Tyler sounded uncertain. Well, that's what she tells you. But Tyler, honey, there are different kinds of love. There's real love, like how I love you, and then there's obligation love. My stomach dropped. I pressed the phone closer to my ear. What's obligation? Tyler stumbled over the word. It's when grown-ups feel like they have to take care of someone, even if they don't really want to. Like how your mommy has to take care of you because you're her responsibility. But she says she loves me more than anything. Of course she does, sweetheart. She has to say that. But think about it, if she really loves spending time with you, why does she work so late? Why does she seem so tired when she comes home? Why does she send you to me every day instead of being with you herself? I was going to be sick. The way Rebecca's voice stayed so gentle, so loving, while she systematically dismantled my relationship with my son was beyond cruel. I don't know. Tyler's voice was getting smaller. It's not your fault, baby. Some people just aren't meant to be mommies. Your mommy tries her best, but she was so young when she had you. She never got to have fun like other people her age. Sometimes I think she looks at you and remembers everything she had to give up. Does she wish I wasn't born? The question came out as barely a whisper, and I had to clamp my hand over my mouth to keep from sobbing out loud. Oh, sweetie, I'm sure she doesn't wish that exactly. But Rebecca's pause was perfectly timed, calculated for maximum damage. Let's just say if she could go back and do things differently, have you when she was older and married and more ready, well, things might be different. Aunt Rebecca? Do you wish you were my mom instead? Another pause that felt like an eternity. Sometimes I do, Tyler. Sometimes I really do. The recording continued, and what I heard next made my blood turn to ice. You know what, Tyler? I have an idea. Rebecca's voice took on an excited, conspiratorial tone. What if we didn't tell your mommy about our special talks? She might get upset if she knew we were discussing grown-up things. Why would she get upset? Well, sometimes when people know they're not doing a good job at something, they get angry at the people who notice. Your mommy might think I'm being mean, even though I'm just trying to help you understand why things are the way they are. The manipulation was so smooth, so practiced. I wondered how many conversations like this there had been over the past 3 months. But lying is bad, Tyler said, though his voice wavered with uncertainty. It's not lying, sweetheart. It's just keeping some things private. Like how you don't tell your mommy every single thing that happens at school, right? Some things are just between us. Rebecca's voice dropped to a whisper. Besides, if your mommy knew how much fun we have together, she might get jealous and not let you come over anymore. And we wouldn't want that, would we? No, Tyler said quickly. I like coming here. I know you do, baby. And I love having you here. You're like the little boy I always dreamed of having. Rebecca's voice cracked slightly, and for a moment I heard real emotion there. Real pain. Sometimes I lie awake at night wondering what I did wrong, why God gave you to someone who can't appreciate what a gift you are. My phone nearly slipped from my shaking hands. This wasn't just about hurting me, Rebecca was working through her own infertility issues by trying to claim my son as hers. The recording continued with the sounds of them moving around, probably getting snacks. Then Tyler's voice, Aunt Rebecca? If my mom doesn't really love me, why does she hug me so much? Oh honey, that's just guilt. When people know they should feel something they don't really feel, they try extra hard to show it on the outside. It's like acting in a play. Your mommy knows she's supposed to love you, so she acts like she does. But it feels real when she hugs me. I know it does. She's gotten very good at pretending. But think about this, when I hug you, doesn't it feel different? Warmer? More natural? There was a long pause. Yeah, Tyler admitted quietly. It does. That's because my love for you is real, Tyler. I don't have to pretend or try hard. I just love you because you're you. The recording cut off there, probably when Tyler moved away from the tablet. I sat in that empty conference room for 10 minutes, staring at the wall, trying to process what I just heard. Rebecca wasn't just poisoning Tyler against me, she was positioning herself as his true maternal figure. Every doubt she planted about my love was paired with reassurance about her own devotion. She was systematically replacing me in his heart. I called my supervisor and told her I had a family emergency. Then I drove straight to Rebecca's house, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles were white. When I pulled into her driveway, I could see Tyler through the living room window, curled up next to Rebecca on the couch. She was reading to him, her arm around his shoulders, and he was looking up at her with the same adoration he used to reserve for me. The sight nearly shattered what was left of my composure. But I forced myself to take a deep breath and think strategically. Confronting her now would only make things worse. She'd deny everything, convince Tyler I was having some kind of breakdown, and I'd lose any chance of fixing this. I needed a plan. And I needed help. I drove home in a daze, my mind spinning with the implications of what I'd heard. When Tyler got home at 6:30, he barely acknowledged me before disappearing into his room. The sound of his door closing felt like a nail in my coffin. That night, I called the one person I trusted completely, my best friend Sarah, who also happened to be a family therapist. Jesus, Emma, she breathed after I played her the recording. This is psychological abuse. What your sister is doing to Tyler, this could cause lasting damage to his ability to trust and form attachments. I know. My voice cracked. But how do I fix it? If I confront her directly, she'll just tell Tyler I'm trying to manipulate him against her. She's created this perfect trap. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. You need to document everything. Get more recordings if possible. And Emma, you might want to consider involving Child Protective Services. CPS? The thought made my stomach lurch. But what if they think I'm an unfit mother? What if they take Tyler away? They won't. You have evidence of emotional abuse by a caregiver. This isn't about your parenting, it's about protecting Tyler from further manipulation. After we hung up, I lay awake until 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling. The idea of involving authorities terrified me, but Sarah was right. This wasn't just about my hurt feelings anymore. Rebecca was damaging my son's psychological development. The next morning, I made a decision that felt like stepping off a cliff. I called Rebecca. Emma. Perfect timing, she chirped. I was just thinking about Tyler. He seemed a little sad yesterday when you picked him up. Is everything okay at home? The casual gaslighting made my jaw clench. Actually, that's what I wanted to talk about. Tyler's been asking some strange questions lately about whether I really love him. Oh no. Kids that age can be so insecure. Rebecca's voice dripped with false sympathy. I hope you're reassuring him. Children need to feel secure in their parents' love. I am, but I'm wondering if something happened that might have triggered these doubts. Well. Rebecca paused, and I could practically hear her calculating her response. He did ask me yesterday why you work so much. I told him it's because you're a strong, independent woman who wants to provide for him. But maybe he's feeling a little neglected? Not that I'm criticizing. Single motherhood is so hard. Every word was a masterclass in manipulation, appearing supportive while planting seeds of doubt about my adequacy as a mother. Did he say anything else that seemed concerning? I pressed. Nothing specific. Although. Another calculated pause. He did mention that you seem tired a lot lately. I hope you're taking care of yourself, Emma. Tyler needs his mommy to be happy and healthy. I ended the call feeling like I'd been slapped. Rebecca had managed to turn my concerns back on me while positioning herself as the caring sister worried about my well-being. That afternoon, I enabled the recording app again before Tyler left for Rebecca's house. When the notification pinged at 4:15 p.m., I locked myself in the bathroom at work to listen. This time was worse. Rebecca had started what she called imagination games with Tyler. Let's pretend you could pick any mommy in the whole world, her voice cooed through the phone speaker. Who would you choose? I don't know, Tyler said, but he sounded intrigued despite himself. Well, what would your perfect mommy be like? Would she be home when you got out of school? Would she bake cookies and help with homework instead of being too tired from work? Maybe. Would she want to spend time with you instead of always being busy with grown-up stuff? Yeah. Tyler's voice was getting stronger, more enthusiastic. And she wouldn't check her phone during dinner. My heart broke. I did check my phone too much during dinner, usually work emails that couldn't wait. That sounds like a wonderful mommy, Rebecca said warmly. You deserve someone who makes you their number one priority, Tyler. Someone who chose to have you because they really, really wanted to be a mom. The implication was clear, unlike me, who had Tyler young and unplanned. And Rebecca? Do you want to be a mommy? More than anything in the world, sweetheart. Uncle David and I have been trying for so long to have a little boy just like you. My hands were shaking so hard I nearly dropped the phone. Rebecca was no longer just undermining me, she was actively auditioning to replace me. The recordings kept coming. Each day brought fresh evidence of Rebecca's systematic campaign to steal my son's heart. By Friday, I had collected over 3 hours of audio documenting her manipulation. The worst part wasn't even the lies about my love for Tyler anymore, it was how she'd begun weaving herself into his future. You know, Tyler, her voice drifted through my earbuds during Thursday's recording, Uncle David and I have been talking about getting a dog. A golden retriever puppy. Wouldn't that be amazing? Really? Tyler's excitement was palpable. Mom says we can't have pets in our apartment. Well, apartments have lots of rules, don't they? Houses are different. Houses have big backyards where boys can play and dogs can run around. Rebecca's voice took on a wistful quality. Sometimes I picture what our house would be like with children's laughter filling it up. Could I come play with the puppy every day? Oh, sweetie, you could do more than visit. You know, there are families where children live with aunts and uncles. Sometimes it's better that way, when the aunt and uncle are more ready to be parents. My blood ran cold. She wasn't just trying to turn Tyler against me anymore. She was planting the idea that he should come live with her permanently. That evening, Tyler barely touched his dinner. I'd made his favorite, mac and cheese with hot dogs cut up in it, but he just pushed it around his plate. Everything okay, buddy? He looked up at me with those serious brown eyes. Mom? Why don't we have a house? The question felt like a trap, loaded with Rebecca's influence. Well, apartments are perfect for us right now. It's just you and me, so we don't need a lot of space. But what if I wanted a dog? Or a bigger room for sleepovers? These weren't 8-year-old concerns. These were Rebecca's wishlist items, carefully planted in my son's mind. Maybe someday we'll get a house, Ty. But our apartment is pretty great, don't you think? Remember when we had that indoor camping night in the living room? Tyler nodded half-heartedly, but I could see Rebecca's voice in his head, comparing our modest 2-bedroom apartment to her 4-bedroom colonial with a finished basement and 2-car garage. Tyler? Are you happy here? With me? The question slipped out before I could stop it, and I immediately regretted asking. His hesitation lasted only 3 seconds, but it felt like an eternity. Yeah, Mom. I'm happy. But the pause before his answer told me everything. Rebecca's poison was working. Saturday morning brought a text that made my stomach drop. Emma. David and I were thinking, what if Tyler spent the whole weekend with us? We could take him to that new trampoline park and maybe catch a movie. Give you some well-deserved alone time. Face blowing a kiss. 6 months ago, I would have jumped at the offer. Now it felt like Rebecca asking for more time to complete Tyler's emotional kidnapping. But if I said no, Tyler would see it as me being mean to his beloved aunt. And I needed more evidence before I made my move. That sounds great, I texted back, each word feeling like a betrayal of my instincts. Tyler will love it. When Rebecca picked him up at 10 a.m., Tyler hugged her longer than he'd hugged me in weeks. I watched from the window as she helped him into her pristine SUV, so different from my dented Honda Civic with the broken air conditioning. As they drove away, Tyler didn't look back at me once. But Rebecca caught my eye in her rearview mirror and gave me a cheerful wave that looked disturbingly like a victory salute. I had 48 hours to figure out how to save my son from the woman who was systematically stealing him from me. The weekend without Tyler stretched endlessly. By Saturday evening, I'd reorganized every closet, deep-cleaned the kitchen, and started 3 different Netflix shows without retaining a single plot point. My phone remained stubbornly silent, no texts from my son, no pictures from Rebecca, nothing. At 9:30 p.m., I finally broke and called Rebecca's house. Emma. How lovely to hear from you, Rebecca's voice was honey sweet. Tyler's already fast asleep. We had such a full day, trampoline park, mini golf, that new ice cream place on Maple Street. He was absolutely exhausted. Can I talk to him for just a minute? I always say goodnight. Oh, I hate to wake him up. He's sleeping so peacefully. I could hear the smile in her voice. You know how cranky kids get when their sleep schedule is disrupted. How about he calls you tomorrow? The dismissal stung. Rebecca, he's 8. He can handle a 30-second phone call from his mother. Of course he can. I just think, well, maybe this weekend could be good practice for both of you. Learning to be independent. Her tone shifted slightly, becoming more pointed. Tyler mentioned you've been checking on him a lot lately. Asking if he's happy, if he loves you. That kind of neediness can be overwhelming for children. My grip tightened on the phone. She was turning my natural concern for my son into evidence of my inadequacy. I just want to hear his voice. And he'll call you tomorrow, I promise. Right now, let's focus on what's best for Tyler. A full night's sleep in a stable, calm environment. The implied criticism was clear, unlike the unstable, anxious environment I provided at home. After hanging up, I sat in Tyler's empty bedroom, surrounded by his drawings and action figures. On his nightstand was a photo from last Christmas, the 2 of us making snow angels, both grinning at the camera with matching red noses. When had he stopped looking at me like that? Sunday crawled by even slower. I called at 10 a.m., but Rebecca said they were just heading out to brunch. At 2 p.m., they were at the Science Museum. At 6 p.m., Rebecca finally answered with Tyler in the background. Hi, Mom. His voice was flat, distracted. Hey, buddy. Are you having fun with Aunt Rebecca and Uncle David? Yeah, I guess. We went to this restaurant where they bring you giant pancakes shaped like animals. I forced enthusiasm into my voice. That sounds amazing. What kind of animal did you get? A elephant. With blueberry eyes. For a moment, he sounded like my little boy again. Uncle David said maybe we could go back next weekend and try the dinosaur ones. Next weekend. My stomach clenched. Well, we'll see. You have soccer practice on Saturday, remember? Oh. The deflation in his voice was unmistakable. I forgot. Rebecca's voice drifted from the background. Don't worry, sweetheart. We can work around your schedule. Work around his schedule. As if I was the inconvenient obligation interfering with his real life. When Rebecca dropped Tyler off at 7 p.m., he dragged his feet up the walkway like he was heading to prison instead of home. She walked him to the door with her arm around his shoulders, whispering something that made him nod solemnly. Thank you for the wonderful weekend, I told her, though the words tasted like ash. Of course. Tyler's like my own son. She kissed the top of his head. We should definitely do this more often. Maybe every other weekend? Give you some regular time to yourself. Every other weekend. Like a custody arrangement. After Rebecca left, Tyler went straight to his room without our usual post-adventure debrief. I found him sitting on his bed, staring at a small wrapped present. What's that, honey? Aunt Rebecca got me something. She said to open it when I missed her. Tyler's fingers traced the silver wrapping paper. She said it's okay to miss people who really care about you. The manipulation was breathtaking. Rebecca had given him a physical reminder of her love, paired with the implication that missing me wasn't necessary because I didn't really care. That was thoughtful of her. What is it? Tyler unwrapped a small picture frame containing a photo I'd never seen, Rebecca, David, and Tyler at what looked like a park, all 3 of them laughing at something off camera. They looked like a perfect family unit. When was this taken? I asked, fighting to keep my voice neutral. A few weeks ago. Aunt Rebecca said we should take more pictures together, to remember all our special times. Tyler placed the frame carefully on his nightstand, right next to our Christmas photo. She has a whole album of pictures of us. A whole album. Rebecca was creating a visual history of their relationship, documenting their bond while positioning herself as a central figure in Tyler's life story. That night, I lay in bed thinking about custody laws and parental alienation. I'd heard horror stories of divorced parents losing their children to manipulation campaigns, but I'd never imagined it could happen between sisters. Monday morning brought a group text that made my blood run cold. Family meeting tonight at Mom and Dad's, 7 p.m. sharp. Important anniversary party planning. Everyone needs to be there. Mom. Rebecca responded immediately, wouldn't miss it. Can't wait to see everyone. 2 hearts. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Family meetings at my parents' house were rare and usually meant someone had big news to share. Given Rebecca's recent behavior, I had a sinking feeling about what she might announce. I'll be there, I typed back, then stared at my phone for a long moment before adding, Tyler's coming too. If Rebecca was planning something, I wasn't going to let her control the narrative by having me show up alone while she played the devoted aunt who was simply concerned about poor Tyler's situation at home. This meeting could be my chance to finally expose what she'd been doing, or it could be the moment she convinced my entire family that I was the problem. Either way, I was walking into a trap with my son's future hanging in the balance. The family meeting was scheduled for 7 p.m., but I arrived at my parents' house 20 minutes early with Tyler in tow. I needed every possible advantage, and catching Rebecca off guard might give me one. Tyler dragged his feet up the familiar walkway to my childhood home, his tablet clutched against his chest. I'd made sure the recording app was running, just in case. Why do we have to go to Grandma and Grandpa's tonight? He whined for the third time. I have homework. It won't take long, buddy. And you love seeing everyone. The lie felt bitter on my tongue. 6 months ago, Tyler would have raced up these steps, eager to show off his latest drawings to my parents. Now he looked like he was walking to his own execution. Mom answered the door with flour-dusted hands and her reading glasses perched on top of her head. Emma. You're early. Perfect, I need help setting up the coffee. She ruffled Tyler's hair as we walked in. There's my favorite grandson. How was your weekend with Aunt Rebecca? Tyler's face lit up for the first time all day. Really fun. We went to this place with huge pancakes and Uncle David taught me how to play pool in their basement. How wonderful. Mom beamed. Rebecca was just telling us about your adventures. She said you're getting so tall, she might have to start buying the bigger size clothes for you. My stomach dropped. What bigger size clothes? Oh, you know Rebecca. She loves spoiling Tyler. Mom waved dismissively as she headed toward the kitchen. She picked up some back-to-school outfits last week. Said you'd been so busy with work, she wanted to help out. Rebecca had been buying Tyler clothes. Creating more evidence of her role as his caretaker, more ways to position herself as the attentive maternal figure while I was painted as too busy and overwhelmed to handle basic necessities. Dad emerged from his study, wearing his good sweater, the navy one Mom made him save for special occasions. There's my boy. He swept Tyler into a hug that my son actually returned with enthusiasm. Ready for the big announcement? What announcement? I tried to keep my voice light. You'll see. Dad's eyes twinkled with mischief. Let's just say Rebecca and David have some exciting news to share. The air left my lungs in a rush. Exciting news. After 6 years of fertility struggles, had they finally succeeded? The timing felt too coincidental, too convenient. If Rebecca was pregnant, it would explain everything, the sudden interest in playing house with Tyler, the systematic campaign to undermine me, the desperate need to practice being a mother. At exactly 7 p.m., Rebecca and David arrived in their matching his and hers winter coats, both glowing with barely contained excitement. Rebecca immediately zeroed in on Tyler, who was sitting beside me on the couch, our Christmas photo album open between us. There's my special boy. She opened her arms wide, and Tyler scrambled off the couch to run to her. She lifted him in a spinning hug that went on just a beat too long, her eyes meeting mine over his shoulder with an expression I couldn't quite read. We brought dessert, David announced, holding up a box from the expensive bakery downtown. Chocolate eclairs from Millicent's. Tyler's eyes went wide. The ones with the cream filling? Only the best for our favorite nephew, Rebecca said, setting him down but keeping her hands on his shoulders. We have so much to celebrate tonight. My parents bustled around, setting up coffee and plates while Rebecca held court in the living room. Tyler pressed close to her side as she showed him something on her phone. Probably more photos for their special memories collection. All right, everyone gather around, Mom called out, settling into her armchair with Dad perched on the arm beside her. Rebecca said she had some wonderful news to share before we dive into anniversary party planning. Rebecca stood up, pulling Tyler with her, and David moved to flank her other side. They looked like the perfect family unit, with my son positioned right in the center of their tableau. Well, Rebecca began, her voice trembling with emotion. David and I have been talking a lot lately about our future, about what we really want our family to look like. Rebecca's hand tightened on Tyler's shoulder as she continued, and we've realized that sometimes the family you choose is more important than the one you're born into. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was it, she was going to ask for custody, or announce some legal proceeding, or... We've decided to start the adoption process, David announced, his voice warm with excitement. We're ready to open our hearts and home to a child who needs us. The relief that flooded through me was so intense I felt dizzy. Not Tyler. They weren't talking about Tyler. But then Rebecca's next words shattered that momentary peace. Actually, we've been thinking about older children. 8, 9, 10 years old. Kids who've been, let's say, in unstable situations. Children who need the security of a two-parent home with financial stability. Her eyes found mine across the room. It's amazing how much damage can be done when a child doesn't feel truly wanted. Mom clasped her hands together, tears shining in her eyes. Oh, Rebecca, that's beautiful. Those older kids need love so desperately. Exactly, Rebecca said softly. And Tyler has been such wonderful practice for us. Haven't you, sweetie? She looked down at my son with such genuine affection that for a moment, I almost forgot what I knew about her manipulation. He's shown us how much we have to offer a child. Tyler beamed up at her. Will the kid you adopt be like my cousin? Oh, sweetheart, they'll be much more than a cousin. They'll be like a brother or sister to you. Someone you can have sleepovers with every weekend, someone who shares your love for pancakes and mini golf. Rebecca's voice took on that dreamy quality I'd heard in the recordings. Imagine how fun that would be. Every weekend. My blood chilled as I realized what she was really saying. This wasn't about some random child they might adopt months or years from now. This was about Tyler. She was painting a picture of his life in their household, using the adoption story as cover. Where would you find a child like that? Dad asked, genuinely curious. Well, David said carefully, there are actually more situations than people realize where children might benefit from alternative arrangements. Sometimes single parents get overwhelmed, or circumstances change, and what's best for the child isn't what the parent originally planned. I felt like I was watching a carefully choreographed performance. They'd rehearsed this, planned every word to plant the idea that loving, stable couples sometimes needed to rescue children from inadequate single mothers. That's so generous of you both, Mom said, dabbing at her eyes. Taking on that kind of responsibility, giving a child the family structure they deserve. It wouldn't feel like a sacrifice, Rebecca said, running her fingers through Tyler's hair. When you love a child as much as we love Tyler, you'd do anything to make sure they have the best possible life. The room fell silent except for the ticking of Mom's antique clock. Tyler looked confused but pleased by all the attention and talk of adoption and sleepovers. My parents looked moved by Rebecca and David's apparent generosity. I sat frozen, finally understanding the full scope of Rebecca's plan. The months of poisoning Tyler against me, the systematic undermining of my parenting, the careful positioning of herself as his true maternal figure, it was all building to this moment. She wasn't just trying to turn Tyler against me for petty revenge. She was building a case for why he belonged with them instead of me. Emma? Mom's voice seemed to come from very far away. Isn't this exciting? Maybe Tyler could help them get ready for their new addition. I managed to nod, not trusting my voice. Across the room, Rebecca smiled at me with what looked like genuine warmth, but I could see the calculation behind her eyes. The trap was closing, and my son was standing right in the center of it. The rest of the evening passed in a surreal haze. While my parents gushed over Rebecca and David's adoption plans, I sat rigidly on the couch, my mind racing through the implications of what I'd just witnessed. Every comment about giving children stable homes and two-parent households felt like a carefully aimed dart at my single mother status. Tyler, meanwhile, had migrated completely to Rebecca's side of the room. He sat cross-legged at her feet while she braided friendship bracelets with him, an activity I didn't even know he was interested in. Every few minutes, she'd lean down to whisper something that made him giggle, and each laugh felt like another small betrayal. So when would you start the home study process? Dad asked, passing around the chocolate eclairs. Actually, we've already begun some preliminary paperwork, David said, glancing meaningfully at Rebecca. Our lawyer thinks we might be able to expedite things if the right situation presents itself. Their lawyer. They weren't just fantasizing about taking Tyler, they'd already gotten legal advice. How wonderful that you're being so proactive, Mom said. Some children can't wait for lengthy bureaucratic processes. Exactly. Rebecca's voice carried that familiar note of false concern. Especially when a child is showing signs of emotional distress or insecurity. The sooner they're placed in a stable environment, the better. I couldn't stay silent anymore. What kind of signs? Rebecca turned to me with practiced sympathy. Oh, you know, withdrawal, questioning whether they're truly loved, academic problems, behavioral changes. Classic symptoms of attachment issues. She paused delicately. Tyler was just telling me yesterday how worried he gets when you work late. Children need consistency, predictability. The manipulation was breathtaking. She'd spent months creating Tyler's insecurity and withdrawal, and now she was presenting those manufactured symptoms as evidence that he needed to be rescued from me. Tyler's always been secure, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. He's never had attachment issues. Of course not, Rebecca said quickly. I didn't mean to imply, it's just that children are so resilient, sometimes they hide their struggles to protect the adults they love. She looked down at Tyler with exaggerated tenderness. They'll put on a brave face even when they're hurting inside. Tyler glanced between us, confusion flickering across his features. I'm not hurting, he said quietly. See? Rebecca's smile was gentle, patronizing. Brave face. You're such a strong boy, Tyler. My parents exchanged a look I couldn't interpret. Had Rebecca been feeding them the same poison she'd been giving Tyler? Planting seeds of doubt about my capabilities as a mother during their weekly phone calls? Well, Mom said carefully, I think it's beautiful that you two are so invested in Tyler's well-being. He's lucky to have such caring family members. The word caring hit like a slap. As if I, his actual mother, was somehow less caring than a sister who'd been psychologically manipulating him for months. At 9:15, Tyler started yawning, later than his usual bedtime, another small mark against my parenting in front of the family jury. We should head home, I announced, standing abruptly. Ah, already? Rebecca pouted theatrically. We barely got to spend any time together. It's a school night, I said firmly, then immediately regretted it. The comment made me sound rigid, controlling, the uptight single mom who couldn't let her kid enjoy himself with his loving relatives. Tyler trudged to the car with obvious reluctance, clutching the new friendship bracelet Rebecca had made him. As I buckled my seatbelt, I caught sight of her in my rearview mirror, standing in my parents' doorway with David's arm around her waist. She looked like the perfect daughter, the perfect wife, the perfect potential mother. Everything I apparently wasn't. Mom? Tyler's voice was small in the darkness of the car. Are Aunt Rebecca and Uncle David really going to adopt a kid? That's what they said. I tried to keep my voice neutral. Do you think the kid will like me? My heart clenched. I'm sure they will, honey. You're pretty great. Aunt Rebecca says I could help teach them things. Like how to play the games in their basement and where the best hiding spots are in their backyard. Tyler's voice grew more animated. It would be like having a brother. A brother he could only access by being at Rebecca's house. Another incentive for him to prefer her home to ours. I realized then that tonight hadn't been an announcement, it had been a test run. Rebecca was gauging the family's reaction to the idea of children needing alternative arrangements, measuring their willingness to support her if she made a more direct move for Tyler. And based on their enthusiastic response, she'd gotten exactly the answer she was hoping for. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Rebecca's satisfied smile as my parents praised her adoption plans, heard Tyler's excitement about having a brother he could visit at her house every weekend. By 3 a.m., I was sitting at my kitchen table with my laptop, researching parental alienation and emergency custody situations. What I found made my stomach drop. In cases where extended family members could demonstrate that a single parent was unfit due to work demands, financial instability, or emotional neglect, temporary custody could be granted surprisingly quickly. Especially when the alternative guardians were a stable married couple with financial resources and an existing bond with the child. Rebecca wasn't just playing a long game, she was building a legal case. The next morning, Tyler moved through his routine like a zombie. Cereal barely touched, backpack forgotten twice, complete silence during our usual car conversation about his day ahead. When I pulled up to the school drop-off line, he was already reaching for the door handle before I'd even stopped. Tyler, wait. I turned in my seat to face him. I love you. You know that, right? He paused, his hand on the door. For a moment, I thought he might say it back, might give me some sign that Rebecca's poison hadn't completely taken hold. Instead, he nodded once, a mechanical gesture that felt rehearsed. Aunt Rebecca says you have to say that, he said quietly, not meeting my eyes. She says all moms have to say it, even when they're tired of being moms. The words hit like a physical blow. Tyler. But he was already out of the car, his backpack bouncing as he jogged toward the school entrance without looking back. I sat in the drop-off line for 10 minutes after he disappeared inside, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. Other parents honked politely behind me, but I couldn't seem to make my foot press the gas pedal. Rebecca had weaponized my own words of love, turned them into evidence of obligation rather than genuine feeling. At work, I could barely function. During my 10 a.m. meeting about the Henderson account, I found myself mentally cataloging every parenting failure Rebecca could potentially use against me, the times I'd ordered pizza instead of cooking, the evening I'd let Tyler watch an extra hour of TV because I was too exhausted to argue, the forgotten permission slip that made him miss the field trip last month. Janet cornered me by the coffee machine around noon. Okay, what's going on? You look like you haven't slept in days. I almost told her everything. The words were right there, desperate to spill out. But how could I explain that my sister was systematically stealing my son's heart? That my family thought she was a saint for wanting to help children in unstable situations? Just family stuff, I managed, adding sugar to coffee I wouldn't be able to taste anyway. Emma. Janet's voice was gentle but firm. I've worked with you for 2 years. You're the most dedicated mother I've ever met. Whatever's happening, don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Her words should have been comforting. Instead, they terrified me. If Janet could see my dedication so clearly, why couldn't my own son? At 2:47 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. Tyler seemed upset at school pickup. Poor baby was practically in tears. Brought him home for milk and cookies before homework time. Don't worry, I'll make sure he's fed and happy. 2 hearts. I stared at the message, my blood turning to ice. Rebecca had positioned herself at Tyler's school. She was now intercepting him during vulnerable moments, swooping in as the caring aunt when he was emotionally fragile. Another text followed immediately. Might be good if he stays for dinner too. He seems like he needs some extra TLC today. Sometimes children need space to process their big feelings, you know? I'll have him home by 8. Space to process. Code for more time to poison him against me while I was painted as the source of his distress. I called Tyler's school immediately. Westfield Elementary, this is Mrs. Patterson. Hi, this is Emma Chen, Tyler's mother. I just wanted to confirm who picked him up today. Oh yes, your sister Rebecca had you on the approved pickup list. She said you were running late from work. Mrs. Patterson's tone was friendly, unsuspicious. Tyler seemed so happy to see her. He's been having a rough day. A rough day. Rebecca had somehow known Tyler would be upset, had positioned herself perfectly to be his rescuer. The coordination was too perfect to be coincidental. What kind of rough day? I pressed. Well, he seemed distracted during math, and at lunch he told Mrs. Rodriguez that he wasn't sure if his family really wanted him. Typical 8-year-old insecurity, but your sister was so sweet to give him some extra attention. Typical insecurity that Rebecca had carefully manufactured and was now publicly solving, making herself look like the attentive family member while I appeared oblivious to my son's struggles. After hanging up, I sat in my car in the work parking lot, finally seeing the full picture of Rebecca's manipulation. She wasn't just turning Tyler against me in private, she was creating public situations where she appeared to be the more attentive, caring parental figure. Teachers, my parents, probably half the neighborhood had witnessed Rebecca stepping in where I had supposedly failed. The custody case was already building itself, one concerned aunt intervention at a time. And I was running out of time to stop it. I called in sick to work and drove straight to Rebecca's house, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. The recording app on Tyler's tablet had captured something that made my blood run cold, Rebecca coaching him on what to tell his teacher about being sad at home. When I pulled into her pristine driveway at 3:42 p.m., I could see them through the kitchen window. Tyler was sitting at Rebecca's granite breakfast bar, animated and laughing as she flipped what looked like homemade pancakes. The domestic scene was perfectly staged, the caring aunt providing comfort food while his neglectful mother worked late again. I rang the doorbell, forcing my face into a grateful smile. Rebecca answered wearing a flower-dusted apron that read World's Best Aunt, a gift I'd given her last Christmas that now felt like a cruel joke. Emma. You're early, she said, her voice bright with false surprise. Tyler and I were just having a little snack. Poor thing was so upset after school. What was he upset about? I stepped inside without being invited, scanning the perfect living room with its family photos prominently displayed, including several new ones of Rebecca, David, and Tyler that I'd never seen before. Oh, just second-grade drama. You know how sensitive he is. Rebecca led me toward the kitchen, where Tyler had stopped mid-bite, his face falling at the sight of me. Some boy at school said something mean about single moms. Children can be so cruel. The lie was smooth, practiced. I'd heard the real conversation on today's recording, Rebecca asking Tyler leading questions about whether other kids had normal families with both parents at home. Hey buddy, I said, ruffling Tyler's hair. He didn't pull away, but he didn't lean into the touch either. Ready to head home for homework time? Can't I finish my pancakes first? Tyler's voice carried a whine I hadn't heard in months. Aunt Rebecca makes them with chocolate chips. Of course you can, I said, then immediately regretted it. Rebecca's smile was triumphant. She'd forced me into the role of the impatient mother disrupting Tyler's happiness. Actually, Rebecca said, her voice taking on that concerned tone I'd grown to hate, Tyler and I were talking about his project for Mrs. Rodriguez's class. The one about family traditions? I offered to help him work on it tonight. My stomach dropped. Tyler hadn't mentioned any family traditions project to me. What project? The one where we have to interview family members about their favorite memories, Tyler said, not meeting my eyes. It's due Thursday. Thursday. Today was Tuesday, which meant Tyler had known about this project for days and hadn't told me. But he told Rebecca. I have Wednesday free, Rebecca continued smoothly. We could really dive deep into our family history. Tyler's so interested in learning about stability and traditions, what makes families strong. Every word was calculated to highlight what Tyler supposedly lacked at home. Stability. Traditions. Strength. That's thoughtful, I managed, but I can help him with his homework. That's what moms are for. Tyler's expression shifted, and I saw Rebecca's coaching kicking in. But Mom, you always say you're too tired for big projects. And Aunt Rebecca has all those photo albums and knows all the family stories. The accusation hung in the air like poison gas. Rebecca had trained my son to see my exhaustion, the natural result of working full-time as a single mother, as evidence that I couldn't be bothered with his needs. I'm never too tired for you, Tyler, I said quietly. That's what you said about my soccer banquet, Tyler shot back, his 8-year-old voice carrying a bitterness that broke my heart. But you fell asleep during my speech. I had dozed off for maybe 3 minutes during the 2-hour ceremony after working a 12-hour day, but Rebecca had apparently turned that moment into proof of my indifference to Tyler's achievements. Tyler, that's not. It's okay, Emma, Rebecca interrupted, her voice dripping with understanding. Single parenting is exhausting. There's no shame in needing help. She placed a protective hand on Tyler's shoulder. Why don't I keep him tonight? We can work on his project, and you can get some rest. You look absolutely drained. The trap was perfect. If I insisted on taking Tyler home, I'd appear selfish, prioritizing my claim on him over his academic needs. If I agreed, Rebecca would have another night to cement herself as his primary support system. Please, Mom? Tyler's voice was small, hopeful. Aunt Rebecca said we could interview Uncle David about when he was little, and then watch a movie in their big TV room. Looking at my son's face, more animated than I'd seen him at home in weeks, I realized Rebecca had already won this round. Tyler wanted to stay here, in this perfect house with his perfect aunt who had time for elaborate projects and chocolate chip pancakes. Okay, I whispered, the word feeling like surrender. But I'll pick you up first thing in the morning for school. Actually, Rebecca said, her smile sharp with victory, David has an early meeting downtown tomorrow. He could drop Tyler off on his way, save you the trip. Save me the trip. As if spending time with my son was an inconvenience I'd be grateful to avoid. As I drove home alone to my empty apartment, I finally understood the true scope of Rebecca's plan. She wasn't just stealing Tyler's love, she was systematically replacing me in every aspect of his life. School pickup, homework help, comfort during difficult moments, even transportation. She was erasing me one small convenience at a time, and I was letting her do it. That night alone in my apartment was the longest of my life. I sat at my kitchen table with all the recordings spread out before me, hours of evidence that my sister had been systematically brainwashing my son. But as damning as the audio was, I realized it might not be enough. Rebecca was too smart to leave obvious fingerprints on her psychological warfare. At 11:47 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from her, Tyler's fast asleep. He was so excited working on his project. Found the sweetest photo of Dad teaching him to ride a bike last summer, Tyler barely remembered it happening. Kids forget so much when they're not around to make consistent memories. Sweet dreams. 2 hearts. The message was perfectly crafted poison. She'd found a memory Tyler had with my father, not me, and used it to reinforce a narrative that other people provided the meaningful moments in his life while I was absent. But something in her phrasing nagged at me. Kids forget so much when they're not around to make consistent memories. It was too clinical, too much like something she'd read in a psychology article or parenting book. I opened my laptop and started searching. Parental alienation tactics. Emotional manipulation children. Undermining parent-child bond. What I found made my skin crawl. Article after article describing exactly what Rebecca had been doing, the systematic erosion of Tyler's trust in me, the positioning of herself as his emotional savior, the creation of evidence that I was inadequate. There was even a term for it, replacement parent syndrome. But buried in a forum for divorce attorneys, I found something that made my heart race. A post from someone with the username FertilityStruggler2019. Has anyone dealt with a case where the alienating party documented their interventions? My situation involves detailed records of every time I helped with childcare, homework assistance, emotional support, etc. Trying to build a case that the bio parent is overwhelmed/neglectual. Lawyer says documentation is key for emergency custody. Timeline is 6 to 8 months of evidence building. The post was from 4 months ago. Exactly when Rebecca had started babysitting Tyler. My hands shook as I scrolled through FertilityStruggler2019's other posts. Complaints about entitled single mothers who don't appreciate what they have. Questions about grandparents' rights and emergency custody procedures. And most chilling of all, a recent post, getting close to endgame. Family meeting went perfectly, everyone sees the concerning signs now. Bio parent getting defensive, which helps my case. Kid asking to stay over more frequently. Lawyer says 2 more weeks of documented evidence should be sufficient for filing. 2 more weeks. I screenshot everything, my mind racing. Rebecca had been building a legal case while I thought this was just sibling rivalry taken too far. She had documentation, witnesses, and a timeline. She'd been 5 steps ahead of me this entire time. At 6:23 a.m., my doorbell rang. I opened it to find Tyler standing there with his backpack, looking small and tired. Behind him, David's Mercedes was already pulling out of the driveway. How was your project? I asked, forcing cheerfulness into my voice. Good, I guess. Tyler shrugged, walking past me toward the kitchen. We finished it, but Aunt Rebecca says I might need to do more research about family stability for extra credit. Family stability. Rebecca was now making my son research the very topic she planned to use against me in court. Tyler, can we talk about something? I sat down beside him as he picked at his cereal. Have you been happy living here? With me? His spoon paused halfway to his mouth. Why are you asking that? Because I love you, and I want to make sure you feel loved back. Tyler's face crumpled slightly, and for a moment I saw my little boy again. I don't know, Mom. Sometimes I feel confused about things. What kind of things? Like. He struggled with the words. Aunt Rebecca says people who really love kids want to spend all their time with them. But you work a lot. And she says families with moms and dads are more stable. But we just have you. My heart shattered. Rebecca had taken every insecurity an 8-year-old could have about his family structure and weaponized it against me. Tyler, working doesn't mean I love you less. It means I love you enough to make sure we have a home and food and everything you need. But Uncle David works too, and he still has time for fun stuff. Uncle David, who had a stay-at-home wife to handle all the daily logistics Tyler didn't see. The comparison was designed to be impossible for me to win. As I drove Tyler to school, I realized Rebecca's timeline had accelerated. She was no longer just building a case, she was preparing Tyler for the transition. In 2 weeks, she planned to file for emergency custody. I had 14 days to save my son. The breakthrough came at 2:17 a.m. on Wednesday night when I couldn't sleep and decided to dig deeper into Fertility Struggler 2019's post-history. What I found buried in a support group forum made my blood freeze. Update, lawyer says we need evidence of actual neglect or endangerment for emergency custody. Kid being sad isn't enough. Working on getting bio parent to lose temper in public, maybe at school pickup or family event. One witnessed outburst should be sufficient to show emotional instability. Anniversary party this weekend could be perfect opportunity. She was planning to provoke me. To make me explode in front of my entire family so she could paint me as an unstable mother who couldn't control her emotions around my child. I screenshot the post with shaking hands, then kept scrolling. More details emerged. Rebecca had consulted 3 different family attorneys, researched my work schedule to document every late pickup, even taken photos of Tyler looking distressed after our conversations about his behavior. But the most damning evidence was in her most recent post, dated just 6 hours ago. Kid asked tonight if he could live with us permanently. Told him maybe someday when the time is right. Planting seeds. He's almost ready to request the custody change himself, that would seal the deal. Tyler had asked to live with him permanently. My 8-year-old son, after months of systematic brainwashing, was ready to abandon me completely. I must have made some kind of noise because Tyler's voice drifted from his bedroom. Mom? Are you okay? I quickly closed the laptop and crept to his doorway. He was sitting up in bed, his hair sticking up at odd angles, looking younger and more vulnerable than he had in months. Just couldn't sleep, buddy. Everything's fine. The lie tasted bitter. Do you need some water? Can you sit with me for a minute? His voice was small, uncertain. I had a weird dream. I perched on the edge of his bed, my heart hammering. This was the first time in weeks he'd asked for comfort from me instead of pushing me away. What kind of dream? I was at Aunt Rebecca's house, but it wasn't visiting. Like, all my stuff was there and I lived there. Tyler's eyes were wide in the darkness. But in the dream, I couldn't remember why I moved there. And I kept asking where you were, but nobody would tell me. Even in sleep, some part of him was fighting Rebecca's manipulation. Some deep, instinctive part of my son still recognized that being taken from me was wrong. That sounds scary, I said softly, resisting the urge to gather him in my arms. Yeah. And the weird part was, in the dream Uncle David kept saying this is what you wanted, but I couldn't remember wanting it. Tyler looked at me with those serious brown eyes. Mom? Would you ever let someone else take care of me forever? The question was loaded with Rebecca's coaching, but underneath it I heard real fear. Tyler might be confused about his feelings for me, but he wasn't ready to lose me completely. Never, I said firmly. You're my son, Tyler. Nobody could ever take care of you the way I do because nobody loves you the way I do. But what if they could do it better? What if they had more money or a bigger house or... His voice trailed off, and I heard Rebecca's arguments echoing in his words. Being a good parent isn't about money or houses, sweetheart. It's about love. And sacrifice. And showing up every single day, even when you're tired. I touched his cheek gently. I would fight anyone who tried to take you away from me. Tyler was quiet for a long moment. Then, Aunt Rebecca says fighting is what people do when they know they're wrong. Even this tender moment was poisoned by her manipulation. But I'd learned something crucial tonight. Tyler wasn't completely lost to me yet. And Rebecca's plan to provoke me at the anniversary party was about to backfire spectacularly. Because now I knew exactly what she was planning. The anniversary party was packed with extended family, neighbors, and family friends, exactly the audience Rebecca needed for her final performance. She positioned herself perfectly at Mom's kitchen island. Tyler pressed close to her side as she helped him arrange photos for a surprise memory book they'd supposedly been working on together. Emma, come see what Tyler and Aunt Rebecca made. Mom called out, her voice bright with pride. It's absolutely beautiful. I walked over slowly, my phone already recording in my pocket. The memory book was professional quality, leather-bound, perfectly organized, with captions written in Rebecca's neat handwriting. But as I flipped through it, my stomach dropped. Every photo showed Tyler with other family members. Rebecca and David at his soccer games. Grandparents at school events. Even his birthday party last year, but cropped to remove me from every shot. This is thorough, I said carefully, aware that half the party was watching our interaction. We wanted to capture all of Tyler's special moments with people who really cherish him, Rebecca said, her voice honey sweet but her eyes challenging. He has such a loving extended family. Extended family. Not immediate family. The implication was clear to everyone listening. Tyler beamed up at her. Aunt Rebecca says we should make one every year now. To document all our memories together. That sounds like a lot of work for Aunt Rebecca, I said, keeping my voice neutral. She's already doing so much, babysitting after school, helping with projects. Oh, it's never work when you love someone, Rebecca replied, her hand resting possessively on Tyler's shoulder. Some people are just natural nurturers, I guess. The barb hit its mark, and I felt my temper flare exactly as she'd planned. Around us, conversations had quieted as family members tuned into our exchange. Speaking of nurturing, I said, pulling out my phone, I found the most interesting article yesterday about parental alienation. Tyler, do you remember what that means? Rebecca's smile flickered for the first time. Emma, this is hardly the place for. It's when someone systematically turns a child against their parent through manipulation and lies, I continued, my voice carrying clearly across the room. The article mentioned something called replacement parent syndrome. Mom, Tyler said uncertainly, what are you talking about? I crouched down to his eye level, ignoring Rebecca's sharp intake of breath. Remember those voice recordings we made for your dinosaur project, buddy? Well, your tablet kept recording other conversations too. Rebecca went pale. Emma, you can't possibly. Sometimes I think she looks at you and remembers everything she had to give up, I quoted directly from one of her recorded sessions. If she could go back and do things differently, have you when she was older and married and more ready, well, things might be different. The room had gone completely silent. Mom dropped her coffee cup, the crash echoing through the kitchen. That's Rebecca's voice, Tyler. Telling you I wish she'd never been born. I stood up, facing my sister directly. Should I play the recording where you tell him I only hug him out of guilt? Or the one where you coach him to ask his teacher about normal families? You recorded private conversations with my son? David stepped forward, his face flushed with anger. I recorded my sister emotionally abusing my child, I shot back. 3 months of systematic psychological manipulation designed to make Tyler believe I don't love him. Rebecca's mask finally slipped completely. You have no idea what it's like watching you waste the gift I'd kill for. Tyler deserves better than a mother who's too busy to show up, who falls asleep at his events, who works 60 hours a week to provide for him. I exploded. While you play house with my son to fill the hole in your marriage. The silence that followed was deafening. Tyler stared between us with growing horror as the truth finally penetrated Rebecca's careful conditioning. Dad cleared his throat roughly. Rebecca, is this true? She looked around the room at 20 pairs of shocked faces, her perfect reputation crumbling in real time. I was trying to help, she whispered. Tyler was so confused about why his family wasn't normal, and I just. You poisoned him against me, I said quietly. 4 months. You made my son believe his mother didn't love him because you were jealous. Tyler's face crumpled as the full scope of the manipulation finally hit him. And Rebecca? Did you lie about Mom not loving me? Rebecca couldn't meet his eyes. In that moment of silence, Tyler finally saw her clearly, not as his devoted aunt, but as the person who'd stolen months of happiness from his childhood. He ran to me then, sobbing, and I held him tight as my sister's carefully constructed world fell apart around us.